Introductions and go ahead.
My name is Lynn Mason. I am a law student at Cooley. Let's see, what else do I say? Great job, everybody. I have to say those were the two of the best closing arguments I've seen in the whole competition. Everybody did a great job. I know this is tough. I guess one of my questions would be in my introduction, who actually wants to go to law school?
Don't do it.
I'll say, you know what, no matter what anyone says, law school, it's extremely rigorous. I'm a mother of three, two who are adults, one who's his third year in college. Law school is the hardest thing I've ever done. But I will tell you, it is one of the biggest rewards once you are done, which I'm sure he already has a job and he's not even done yet, so that's a huge reward. It's one of the biggest, the best things you can ever do. So if anyone ever says don't do it, just do it in spite of them saying that. Because I love law school. I mean, I'm away from my family. My family is in Illinois, and that's a hard thing. But to be honest with you, you're so busy, you're so consumed with everything you do. Time goes by like that. Would you agree? And I'm sure your coach can attest to that as well. It seems like I just started 2 days ago, but I've been here for almost a year. So law school is an amazing accomplishment, and the way you guys are going, you'll do for those who you want to pursue law school, you will do very well. Just keep up this momentum. I do believe you don't get that much into the content of the law yet, doing the competition. It's more or less of the presentation. Am I correct in assuming so? Yeah. Once you do start getting into the law, you'll see why you're doing this. So keep up the good work.
So my name is Alex Kemp. I am a 3L at Wayne Law School right now. I have experience with criminal and civil law. I've interned at the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office. I first chaired a felony jury trial. I am president of mock trial at Wayne Law, so I oversee a lot of trials. I do the national team at Wayne Law. We won the regionals and competed on the nationals. So I literally live and breathe mock trial, and I do mock trial so much it's ridiculous, but it's what I want to do. I want to be in a courtroom and try cases, and it's exactly why I went to law school.
Don't do it.
It's a lot of work. It's definitely a lot of work, but it's very rewarding. And being on mock trial on the national team has been the most rewarding thing I've done in law school in 3 years. Overall, I thought everyone did very well, very strong. I oversee a lot of trials in law school, being the president, and some of you are at or even much further along than people I see in law school. So those that do want to go to law school, you will have a huge advantage, and it's ridiculous. Like when I go to court a lot with the firm I'm at, some of the attorneys couldn't even comprehend or get across the arguments that you guys are creating. So you guys are going to be very well off when you want to go to law school and start practicing. I don't know if you want to give any specific comments or general comments or what you want to do. But
I want to kind of add a little to what you say as far as like going to court. I actually interned for Judge Appolino, who actually does teach here at Circuit Court. She does civil and criminal. And I actually, this past week, I was at the Supreme Court, Michigan Supreme Court. And it's amazing how you still go to the Supreme Court and see attorneys that are still unprepared. So when you say that, I could say some of you have done a lot better than some of the attorneys I've seen in the courtroom. They get so stumbled really quickly. And as I explained to the last group, sometimes when you do feel like you stumble or you may stutter or whatever, that just shows you're human. You're not above anyone else. It shows the jury you're human, especially the jury. And adding even more to that, when you go into the courtroom, you have to be very cognizant. You'd be surprised at the little things that judges nitpick at. And your reputation will precede you forever. So one little thing, it will precede you forever. So you have to be very careful, very cognizant in your appearance. If your collar's jacked up, they may look at you and say you're a mess. You know, I mean, it's those little things that you just wouldn't believe that judges do look at and how because they talk. So, and given that said, you are free to go to, I know this is Michigan State, you can always come to circuit court and sit in circuit court whenever you feel like it to get some experience, because that's the best experience you will gain. Just to sit in the back of the courtroom. I know Judge Aquilina right now has I do believe it's still going on, a murder trial going on right now. If you ever wanted to go sit in a courtroom, you can do that. So don't ever feel shy away from doing so, because that's actually where you get the best experience. That's where I get my best experience, more than I get in the classroom, basically. I just joined mock trial, so I have to say, I hope and pray that I can be almost as good as some of you guys, because that's what I strive for, because I do want to do litigation. Eventually, like to become a judge, a real judge. But I also do compete for ADR, which is alternative dispute resolution. So no matter what you do in the field of law, you do have to know how to talk to clients. So just make sure that you keep up your communication, you continue to do what you're doing, because this is your best path to do what you want to do when you come to practicing.
I'm going to start with some general comments, and I'll probably go through a little bit more specifics since we do have a little bit of time. When you're at the tables and you're not presenting, be wary of what you're doing. Don't look like you're totally not involved or you don't care. You always need to be professional. The jurors are going to, in real life, the jury is going to be bored, they're going to be looking around, and they're going to be looking, what are you doing at your table? And that brings me to another point of keep your table very organized and clean. I know it's hard because we have like not the biggest tables, and in court you have a little bigger table, but you want it very clean and neat, and not papers everywhere. I know like we have a lot of things you give us, and you have exhibits you want to use for like each witness, but what I do is when I compete is we have one binder of everything we want, and we have like opening, and then maybe a copy of our opening and any exhibits we're going to use, and then we go on to the first witness on direct. We'd have maybe a copy of what we wrote as our direct, and multiple copies of any exhibits that we are going to use. And so everything's in that one binder, and we just open it, get it out for that witness, close that binder. We each have our notepad and little post-it notes to pass to each other. But you just show that presence of, look, I'm organized, I'm on top of it, and I know what to do. Once you guys go on to, was it like Orcs and Nationals at the end of the year, that stuff is going to make a big difference in just how the judges view you and how they view how prepared you are. So that's a big thing. It's the small things that really do count. I didn't see any redirects. Is there a reason for that? I don't know if you're coached on that or what is that? Is there any reason no one did a redirect?
Did you want redirects like for everybody, or?
I pretty much expect them from everybody. Some people don't like redirects, but the thing is with a redirect is you get to have the last word with your witness. On cross-exam, their whole point of cross-exam is to make them look bad, make them look like a liar, make them look like they're wrong, and just expose their case. Well, that's the last thing the jury's going to hear about that from that witness if you don't redirect. Even if it's just a few questions of clarifying some things, or just another way to ask your conclusions in the way you want the jury to hear it, you should do that so you have that word of a positive light of your witness that your jury leaves with. So I think it's pretty vital to redirect, especially like when the defendant was crossed, they got a lot of good information out of you of like, I don't even know what it was, like he didn't mention money, he didn't do this, he didn't do this. And they made all these good points, and then we're just left with that. And so that's your witness, you need to redirect and bring it back to why exactly she felt manipulated. Can you reiterate why you felt manipulated? What did he do? What did he say? Just to explain to the jury, no, we are right, she was manipulated. On cross-examination, two things, pretty much across the board. ask smaller questions, and you gotta tighten it up. So you're asking not only compound questions, but just very long fact patterns, or just long things. You wanna short questions and short points. So you did this, he was there, right? And he was there, and then you did this, and he did this. So one small movement or action by a person. The bigger the question, the more the witness has an opportunity to get away from it, not just say yes or no. The type of question, they have to say yes, and you keep testifying, and you're the cross-examiner, but you're basically testifying, and you're just getting yes, yes. Because it's such a small question that they can't even disagree with it. So they have to keep saying yes, and you're just testifying the whole time, and that's how a cross-examination should be. And that's another thing, when you're on cross-exam, you're not asking questions. You're telling the witness what happened. So you're not asking any who, what, when, where, why questions. There weren't too many, but there were a few. Or just the way that the questions were phrased, they were asked as a question form, not a statement. It should pretty much be just a statement with a question mark at the end. You walked out of the room, and then the briefcase was exchanged. So he walked in with a different briefcase. Like, you're just basically testifying, and they're just saying, yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's what ultimately you want to get out of them. And that way, the jury hears it exactly how you want them to hear it, because you're phrasing the questions. And I know it's very hard with mock trial, because you never know what the other side's gonna do, but make sure you guys get your genders right, of calling the person Mr. or Mrs. A lot of people mix that up. I always had a terrible time with that when I did undergrad mock trial, because you practice one way of he, and then of course it's a girl, and then you get confused, but it's really hard because then you have like someone directing of he, and then the witness says she, and then it just gets very confusing, especially when you're scored on being a witness or doing the smaller things. That kind of stuff does count. So that's very general things. I don't know if you want to go into anything else.
I just want to make sure that you understand something, is like when you stand up and you want to make sure, and this is even in real life, you always want to address the court. Even if it's for like the 10th time, you always want to address the court. Some judges get very picky and sticky about that. I don't know how it is in mock trial, but I know in real life, in real court, you never want to get up. And I know in one instance, with the napkin, you just handed the napkin to the witness. You have to make sure you ask permission to do things like that.
That's another thing about listening to the judge, because in my preliminary rulings, I said that you need to ask permission to approach the witness. And some of you asked, you went over to opposing counsel, and then you just went and wait to the witness. I know one time someone asked both the opposing counsel and witness, that's fine, but you need to make sure, if that's important, to listen to the judge's ruling. So if he says you need to ask, you need to make sure you ask each and every time. You always want to show that deference to the court. I'm just going to go over a few specific things just because this is what is going to get you guys better for next time. One thing in general in openings, it's very hard because you have such a tight time restraint, so you can only do so much. But try to more tell a story than just say what each witness is going to say. So you kind of give a timeline of you kind of paint the picture of what happened and what the defendant did, and she did this and she did this, and then this is what happened after, and this witness is going to confirm that's what's happened. And you tell it in a story form so the jury can listen and understand it in a lot better way. Not, first we will call this person, he will say blah blah blah. Next, this person, then whatever. It's just,
They get bored with that.
it's very choppy, yeah, and it's hard to comprehend how it all fits together. When you tell a story of, the defendant, she valued, and then what her father told her about the values, and she felt manipulated, and that's exactly what she's going to come up here and tell you, is that, and you reiterate so they kind of know who's going to testify, but they hear everything and all the facts that happened in one fluid story.
Can I add to that real
Yeah,
quickly?
go ahead.
And to add to that, you have to think of it, and again, I'm not sure if this is completely mock trial, but you have to think of it, these are jurors. you're talking to the jury, so you almost have to pretend you're talking to maybe your 10-year-old brother or sister, and you're explaining it to them.
You dumb it down.
You
and
dumb it
paint
down,
in
you don't
crayon.
want to explain anything in a legal sense where because jurors are like, tune out in like 5 seconds. And the next thing you know, like you said, they're looking around and then they're looking at the cop who's going like this. And you want to contain your jury, keep them engaged. And then as the case goes on, they're like, oh, that's what she was talking about. That's what she was talking about. She proved that point. So you want to make sure you dumb it down where you explain it in layman's terms.
I thought both openings and closings did a great job of explaining the legal terms in layman terms. In the previous trial, they just said, we must prove that he's predisposition to committing this crime, and then the defense pretty much said the exact same thing, and they didn't explain what the predisposition means. I guarantee you go down to Wayne County here and say that we must prove that the defendant must be predisposed to committing a bribery. They don't know what that means. So you need to explain those terms, and you guys did a great job, so continue to do that.
Right.
Any legal term, a juror does not know what it means, so you need to explain exactly what it means. All around on openings and closings, you guys all had great, you're moving with presence, which is good. You have great hand movements, eye contact, that's great. One of the things, especially it's a unique dynamic with this case, since there's an affirmative defense and there's different burdens, kind of take advantage of that. So when you're the prosecution, when you're harping on them, having the burden to prove the affirmative defense, don't say that they have a lesser burden. Just talk about, and they have the burden to do that. Because after you talked about your burden and beyond a reasonable doubt, and you just say they have that burden, the juror's not going to know the difference and think, oh, they have just a high of a burden to prove. You don't need to give them that extra. They should be explaining that to the jury to clear that up. But it's just another thing of, you don't need to do that work for them. And another thing for the defense is you need to distinguish the burdens and saying, the prosecution, their burden's up here. This is the highest burden in our criminal justice system. Our burden, down here. This is all we have to prove, 50% a feather, or whatever you guys want to say. And they distinguish that we don't have to prove as much as they do. They're the state, they have such a high burden to prove, and they can't meet that burden. Even if they did, our burden's so low, we can easily meet it. Let's see. I thought directs were very good. Witnesses all did great, great eye contact, definitely playing it right. Facial expressions. Cameron, the accent was like amazing. That was awesome.
I know.
Loving that. Great eye contact. You guys are talking with your hands right. Witnesses have all practiced well, and you guys are just doing everything pretty much right.
Just if there's one tip I can give you, or actually maybe two, first of all, with anything, sports, I mean, I have a kid who's he plays basketball in college. It's practice, practice, practice. Lives, eats, breathes, practicing. Practice, practice, practice will only make you better. Practice in the mirror, watch yourself talk. Take your fact pattern, practice in the mirror. Tape yourself. That's where you'll hear your flaws. And you continue to do that, that's how you'll get better. You can't really do it without it. You can't. Because you're never going to know your flaws unless you hear yourself. So those are the two things that I would say that would definitely make you better.
For our national team, for mock trial, we would literally have homework every week, and we tape ourselves and send it into our coaches. And until you watch it, you're like, oh my gosh, am I really doing this?
Yeah, you're like, ooh.
Do I sound like this?
Sound like
It's-
that? Why did I
and
say
so-
oh 50 times?
Exactly. And so, I mean, obviously you're gonna get a lot of feedback when you practice and you have coaches in real time, but once you see it yourself and you start to notice things that, like, wow, I really am doing that, or I shouldn't be doing this, or I need to do this.
Right.
It's very useful. It's really awkward watching it the first time, but it's extremely useful. One of the things I noticed, so when you have a document and you give it to the witness, you can't leave it with the witness unless, like, if you're gonna admit it, like the napkin, admit it, but don't leave the document sitting with the witness and then just keep talking and moving on. So if you're gonna admit it, you could have and you should, and you laid the good foundation for it, but you need to ask for it to be admitted, and then you can either publish to the jury or just move on to another topic if you want. I thought there were some good objections, but there could have been more objections. Even if it's just to break up the flow, there was some objections of like a relevance objection, which was, it's totally relevant, but it doesn't matter because you just want to break up the flow, and that's fine. And you should, especially when on cross. If your witness is just getting beat up, you just need to throw out an objection, just for something, so they can ask a question, or take some time to answer the question. But overall, there could have been more objections, more speculating objections, more hearsay objections. So definitely be listening for those. Good job, like admitting the email, that was good, laying the foundation. The expert, you did a great job of laying the foundation for the expert to qualify him and going through how awesome he is and why you should listen to him. And that's exactly what you do for an expert. And going back, I guess, to objections, one of the things, like, I think it was Shireen, like, one of your objections was relevance, and I said, like, overruled on those grounds,
Yeah.
because it should have been speculation, because it's definitely relevant, I forgot what it was, but it was because the witness was speculating about what someone else was thinking or did or something. So you're making objections, which is good, but make sure you're on point of what the objection is. And that goes for everyone. There were definitely a good amount of missed objections, of speculation, of hearsay. So just think about anytime there's a conversation, especially for purposes of mock trial. Like, I know, like, there's going to be an exception, or it's going to be a party opponent or something. But you just want to say, hearsay to prove to the judges that I know that that's hearsay, to prove that, you're right. Because it is hearsay until there's an exception, or unless it's excluded. Let's see. I thought all directs were very good. You guys all asked very good follow-up questions. I don't know if it's a matter of like your script and it's just so memorized and it's perfect because you practiced it 1,000 times, or it's just a matter of asking it. But whatever the witness would ask, you would have a good follow-up. And that went for cross as well, of using kind of what the witness says, because that's kind of a big downside of making a script, especially like on cross, of I'm gonna ask this, 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 this. They start answering it a different way, or something else came out on direct, and you want to stick to your script, but it doesn't make sense based on what the witness is saying. So I think you guys did a good job of just getting what you needed to get out of cross. A lot of you had very good control of your witnesses,
Yes.
of bringing them back, of even if they answered the question, like, so that's a yes, right? And that's
Yes.
very effective,
That is.
without looking like an asshole, but making it so you're getting it across so that the jury sees that the witness doesn't want to answer the question. And that's great. The better you can paint it so that the witness is not complying, is trying to hide something or whatever it is, it's just going to be that much better. Closing arguments, I've only judged, I didn't judge yesterday, I just judged today, but they were far and away the best closings I saw today. Both of you were exceptional. You guys both have a great courtroom presence. You're moving well. You have both a great tone. You're slowing down at the right time.
Right.
You're getting
Right
louder
pauses.
at
Right
appropriate
pauses.
times. You're pausing. You're reiterating important things throughout. So not only are you presenting well, but the content is great. Like prosecution, the whole reiterating that it was her free will. And you went through like 6 different things of why it was her free will.
Great application.
And that's what you need to do, because now the jury just remembers. It was her own free will. Remember, she did this, then she did this, and she did this. And you exposed it, or you recapped it from, remember on cross when she was questioning about this and this? And then you did a great job of recapping that as well. again, both of you guys did great. I'm not sure, I mean, I haven't read this case file because I just started this. I'm not sure the whole, I mean, I know you have to say that the police officer trapped her or whatever, right? It's just the whole puppet master. I guess after I seen the defense, or the cross on defendant, I was like, I don't really know how she's being controlled or manipulated based on all the stuff of, because they made a great job of like making the point of, so you assumed, and now you're just making assumptions that she was talking about bribery or that she must do this. So I feel like talking about the whole puppet thing may have gone a little far, but maybe that's just me. I don't really know all the facts and the problem, and I know you guys get to like choose what witnesses. So I don't know really, because I saw different witnesses in the last trial. But other than that, I thought everyone did a really good job. Rebuttal was really well of turning it back on her, of turning the whole puppet theme around of no, she's a master, she did this, right back to your theme. You quoted the defendant right at the beginning, which was very effective. But I thought everyone did a really good job, and you guys are definitely on the right track for sure, so.
And I will say that I did both days, so I will say this was the best group of the 2 days that I've seen. So kudos to your coach for instructing you and coaching you well. So we don't want to leave him out because he did a good job coaching you guys, because I'm sure it's not easy, especially since he's a 2L, so.
Where are you guys from?
Case Western.
Case Western.
Wow.
Well, those are both great.
Northwestern? Who's
Northwood?
Northwood? Oh, I was gonna say
Those are
that.
great mock trial schools.
Even though I'm from Chicago. Where do you go to law school now? You can tell us that.
Yeah, my case.
Okay, wow.
I did undergrad at BC at Boston College,
Okay,
so I sort of came back home to Case because I
cool,
grew up in Cleveland.
cool. My son played basketball in Ohio last year at Heidelberg